Back at it here on the 2 Deep podcast, talking a little NFL football. If you catch us via the podcast, remember we stream live. You can be a part of the conversation in the chat room, making your thoughts known. We usually go Tuesdays, a little before 9 Central, but because Eric Eager's late today, we run a little bit late today. But you don't care. You're catching us via the podcast. The 2D podcast proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Currently hiring for all positions, one of the fastest growing companies in Kansas City. Project managers, dump truck drivers, operators, crew members, starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, paid time off, insurance. Yep, got both of those. Just a couple of the benefits you can get to work with Gann Asphalt and Concrete online at gannasphalt.com. I want to talk about Lamar Jackson taking to Twitter a second Thursday night game being added. Chris Ballard saying the Colts will take a look at Lamar Jackson. Odell Beckham Jr. to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers says he ain't talking to the Packers no more. John Lynch says that Brock Purdy's shown enough to be QB number one. What's this do for Trey Lance? Matt LaFleur is preaching patience when it comes to Jordan Love, and the NFL draft is right around the corner. We talk about it all here on the 2D podcast.
You're listening to the 2 Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. 2 Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. 2 Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at gannasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete is now hiring for all positions: project manager, dump truck drivers, operators, and crew members. Starting pay up to $30 per hour based on experience, with paid time off and insurance, just to name a few of the benefits. Check out gannasphalt.com for more info. Now, here are the hosts of the 2 Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And welcome back here to the 2 Deep podcast. Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, Soren Petro with you. Thank you, Curtis, for the introductions. Guys, let's get right to it. Let's start with what the biggest news has been for the last couple of days, Jeff. That's that Lamar Jackson is tweeting out that back on March 2nd, March 3rd, he has to be traded. How significant is him revealing this, and what does it gain him, if anything?
He gains nothing. And what it does do is it makes him look even more foolish for not having an agent involved in this process. Because, and I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to curry public favor. He's trying to show people transparency. But it's really hard to do that when you're in the middle of this kind of a negotiation because he's pissed off. He's not getting the love from people outside of his organization. He's not getting what he thinks is love from inside his organization. And it just feels like this is becoming a lot more personal every time he goes to Twitter. Like, if you're going to not have an agent, don't be on social media. Don't be trying to play these games, because they hold all the cards in terms of your freedom. They can decide whether they trade you, whether you get paid money next year. They can make your life difficult. And I always laugh at all these players go on ESPN and talk about, oh, Lamar's got him over a barrel and sit out and do this. And if you show up and get your money, play like you're hurt. It's like the Ravens have thought about all this stuff before they got to this place for Lamar Jackson, all these scenarios. They have very smart people in the organization. Eric DeCosta is a smart guy. Ozzie Newsome is a smart guy. They're trying to play nice. They're trying to say all the right things. And they're not going to trade the guy. They're not going to trade him unless they get an amazing offer. And that's not coming down the pipe. I mean, what Lamar Jackson has to understand is if this was Patrick Mahomes' situation, if it was Joe Burrow, if this was Justin Herbert, they'd have deals by now. there'd be people chasing them down to give them big contracts. The fact that you're not getting this should tell you what your value is. And so that's kind of every time I go to Twitter, it reinforces that he's misplayed this from the start.
Yeah. Eric, does this gain anything for him? Is it at least keeps him top of mind? It refreshes him to the top of the the ESPN talking head shows. I'll say that. That's by the way, we do need to answer that. I think that's a light.
You can't dignify that question.
I'm in Lubbock,
Those are
Texas.
clearly lamps.
Yeah, those are lamps.
It looks like two rolls of toilet paper set on a shelf. If
this is decoration in Lubbock, Texas. I am in the nice part of Lubbock, Texas, where I have a Cheddar's, an Outback Steakhouse, and a Jason's
Cheddar's
Deli
is like low-key
next to
solid.
Me. Yeah, I mean, I'm half expecting Eric won't get this reference. I'm half expecting Clint Eastwood to roll in here in an 18-wheeler with an orangutan on his side and park right next to my car, because this is the kind of spot he was hanging out back in the 80s.
People don't know memories. This is the shirt I wore at my first ever Chiefs game. This is, by the way, the old NFL equipment, the Reebok that they used to wear. That's a memorable piece. It doesn't need to be folded. These are socks Petro got me, right? Yep. And this is a Super Bowl 54 shirt that I've never worn because that Super Bowl lasts forever. People need to chill out. This is memorable stuff. Memorable stuff.
Go ahead.
I do think he wants to stay top of mind. I do think
before you move too far from that, can we acknowledge this? No, those are dirty clothes behind Eric. They are Chiefsaholics getaway clothes.
See, the thing I like about Tommy Lester is Tommy Lester is like the Marquez Valdez-Scantling of posters in our comment section.
He lives in your mind.
0, 0, 0, 6 for 116 and 1, 0, 0. That's how he goes. It's a good one, Tommy. Okay.
By the way, if somebody's just joining the podcast, that is a gentleman that was arrested for robbing a bank. Chiefsaholic.
Tommy or
Chiefsaholic allegedly robbed a bank,
and no one knows his real name. By the way, right? No one ever uses his real name.
Yeah, something like that, and was arrested and then placed on house arrest, and apparently he has now fled the house arrest and is on the lam. So that's where that comes from. He's a rather notable chief. I've heard him called Superfan. And that story.
I'm frankly jealous that his super fandom is obviously eclipsing all of ours. But I think Lamar, when he looks at everything the same way through the Deshaun Watson lens, right? So if you look at Deshaun Watson, when he became disenchanted with, now of course there's the sexual assault stuff, but when he became disenchanted with Houston, there was a whole season where he was kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? That dude was playing scout team safety and like messing around and all this stuff. And I think, obviously worked out for Deshaun Watson, but we've also seen other players for whom it didn't work out the greatest. And so I think he wants to avoid that. I think he wants to get, sort of in everybody's, like, he wants to avoid not playing this season for the Ravens. And that's going to require probably a team signing to an offer sheet or offering the Ravens a trade. As of right now, those things don't appear to happen. I said this a number of times. I think I said this on the show. Like, I think the best time for Lamar to sign an offer sheet is going to be after the draft, when teams like Detroit, Vegas, teams that need a quarterback but are picking high, miss on a quarterback. And they're like, okay, well, if we get Lamar, we're going to have a better pick in 24 than we have now. And so let's go ahead and sign the offer sheet now. Like, I think I think Lamar obviously wants to push the envelope, as he wants to get this resolved.
Let me add a layer to this. Richard Sherman has a podcast. I'm going to play for you what Richard Sherman had to say is the problem with why Lamar Jackson is not getting the deal. Who's to blame for why he's not getting a guaranteed deal?
What pissed me off is when Kirk Cousins got his fully guaranteed deal, I thought all the quarterbacks from then on were going to be like, hey, if it ain't guaranteed, I ain't taking it. Then Mahomes took that BS deal, just 10 years, and wanted to look like $500,000. Like, but if you get a half of that fully guaranteed, everybody's happier. That sets precedent. But when he didn't set it, then Josh Allen didn't set it. Now Lamar's trying to set it after Deshaun's already set it. And they're like, Nah.
They don't want to, allow certain things to happen because it sets a trend going forward. But, I mean, they should have thought about that when the Kirk Cousins deal came up. Again, they should have thought about the big dogs coming after him. And, I mean, this situation, this is the bed that they made.
Right. It's the bed you made. Now Landon, for them to say nobody's interested in him. I mean, they trading 2 first-round picks for D linemen, for safeties. And you talking about former MVP of the league. A lot of these teams don't got nobody at the quarterback spot. Some of them trading 2 first-round picks to draft a kid that you don't know what he going to be.
Yeah, there's, Richard Sherman obviously knows the league, right guy, but not informed about the contracts. I think it's amazing. He's holding up the Kirk Cousins deal, which is a 3-year, $84 million, $86 million guaranteed deal, fully guaranteed deal, as like that should have been it. Now, he kicked down the door. Now everybody run through it. And then he runs down the Patrick Mahomes deal. Mahomes deal had over $100 million in guarantees when it was signed, or at least $80 or $90 million when it was signed. But the part, I don't think he's actually read the Mahomes deal. It's always guaranteeing 2 years out. So right now, Patrick Mahomes' 23 and 24 salaries are guaranteed. When the third day of the league year comes up next year, the 24 and 25 will be guaranteed. So I think this is part of the narrative to what you said, Jeff. This just like when you made the comment, all these ex-players go on ESPN and they say these things, and they can't believe where it is. It's largely uninformed opinions because the better contract is by far Patrick Mahomes' contract over Kirk Cousins' deal. That goes without saying. And it's because Patrick Mahomes is better. I don't know why this can't be the league saying Lamar Jackson is tremendous, but he's not as good as these other guys.
Well, here's what, I'm not the math guy here, but I can remember things. I can read. And I remember a tweet that Lamar Jackson put out saying he was offered 3 years, $133 million, fully guaranteed by the Ravens. That's a fully guaranteed contract, right?
Yeah.
And you get another bite at the apple 3 years down the road. So if you get 2 more years after that, which I'm assuming you'll get a lot more than $133 million or 3 years, you're probably going to get your $230 million, $260 million, whatever it's going to be. So, I love Lamar Jackson. I'm a big fan of his, but I don't understand the thinking. And this is why teams are – part of it's they don't want to guarantee contracts to the amount of Deshaun Watson, but
and
they
for
also
a guy who
don't
takes
want to
hits.
What's that?
And for a guy who takes hits, his game gets him hit.
But the thing is, he's not willing to show any kind of flexibility on that part of it. Like, if I'm an owner or on GM, I'm not going to give you $230 million. I'll give you a certain amount guaranteed, but he needs to have that number. And that's where he's got to be realistic about this and understand that however you want to do the math, if someone's guaranteeing you a contract, it's a fully guaranteed contract. It doesn't have to be $250 million or whatever, or $230 million.
Yeah. And when you're $100+ million in dead cap money, that makes it almost impossible to cut you as well. So it virtually guarantees itself. But Mahomes has that rolling 2-year guarantee.
And your team goes away.
Yeah.
Which is why Mahomes has the contract he has, right?
Yes.
You have a team around you.
Yes.
I have 3 points to make about this. A, I hate to dig a former coworker named Richard Sherman, but I'm going to here. He signed one of the worst contracts. He represented himself and signed one of the worst contracts for a player that I've seen signed. Like, look, he signed Laramie Tunsil's out here. He should be selling courses for $2,000 a head about how to negotiate these deals. Richard Sherman has no leg to stand on because that dude signed one of the worst deals constructed for a player in the league. Talk about 3 years, not even guaranteed, low, and then finally got to the end there, and it was just barely got him to that 12, 13 million mark when he was supposedly one of the best corners in football. So he does have a leg to stand on because he screwed himself and screwed the corner market by his last contract, the one he signed with the Niners. The other one is that Mahomes' deal is better than Cousins. What are we freaking talking about? It is 4 3-year fully guaranteed deals tacked onto each other. And so what do we Mahomes' contract, I'm friends with Brant. I'm going to give him a little love here. It was a really well run deal that was a good deal for the team and a good deal for the player. This is how it should have been done. This is how it should be done when you have a smart cap person. So that's the other one. And then the last one is it has we got to stop blaming players for wanting to win. Like the other part is like Mahomes did this so that he could win more. So he wouldn't hamstring his team. One of the reasons why the Ravens are going to suck without Lamar is because they've been waiting around for Lamar for 3 years to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And they've been waiting and like they haven't. The best part about Mahomes' deal is that the Chiefs can plan for all of the stuff that's going to go around it. Hey, you lost both your right and left tackle. Okay, we're going to convert some Mahomes' money. Got to pay for in the future. You get Orlando Brown, like you get Joe Tooney, all this kind of stuff. The worst part about the Cousins deal and why like no one should think of the Cousins deal as a good deal is because since then the Vikings haven't been able to sign a guy to anything because it's a 3-year deal and then every deal after that, like it's a year and a half and then you're going right up against the cap again. A year and a half, right up against the cap again. Those short deals suck for the team and they suck for the player.
Chris Ballard says that the Colts will take a look at it. Jeff, do you buy that? I mean, do you really think that they're going to offer up 2 first-round picks, or do you mean does he mean they'll take a look at it after the draft goes by? I think Eric's right. I don't think anybody does anything till after the draft because they don't want to give up any picks. They're already counting guys that are there, and then they're going to count on being better, whatever they have. Certainly, nobody with high picks is going to give it up. That maybe they'll take a shot afterwards. But do you think that's just Chris Ballard not wanting to be quizzed at it? I will take a look at it, or do you think the Colts would actually be a potential destination?
Well, I think they'll take a look at it because they looked at every other quarterback that was available to them over the last 4 or 5 years. So that's their MO. I mean, they're not going to break away from that now, but he doesn't make sense for them just because they got a top 5 pick. They can find a young quarterback. They can get on that. Hey, let's build around the young quarterback, spend some money, rebuild our team. Maybe they take a hit this year in terms of not being able to compete, but you can see them legitimately if they go that route, being able to, if they got a good quarterback, being able to be back in the mix. And so again, to have to take a chance on Lamar Jackson, give up 2 first-round picks, and pay him all that money, it's going to cripple your roster. And so why would you do that unless you really are in a situation where you can – someone mentioned the 49ers, and they're not going to do it, but it's like they would make sense because a team that wants to win now would do something like that, like what the Jets are doing with Aaron Rodgers, where it's like we got a team that's ready to go. Let's go ahead and make this move. But, again, if you had an agent, you would be able to – have these conversations before it ever gets to this point. And you could kind of get a lay of the land. You could have been in them with the Saints. You could have been in with the Raiders. So, yeah, I think the Colts will look at it. But, no, I don't think he's going to wind up with the Indianapolis Colts. And to Eric's point, going back real quick about this whole money thing, guy at my place, friend Tom Pelissero, made a good point about this. Quarterback is not a guaranteed position. It's a cash flow position. You are always going to be getting money if you're playing that position. So you don't have to sit here and, fight and scrap and claw to get these guarantees because you're going to make money regardless if you're playing that position.
Yeah. Eric, the Colts, to me, I don't see it coming together, but they did kind of ground and pound 2 years ago. Lamar Jackson would help them do that. I don't know. Is that maybe the scenario that they're actually going, okay, let's let everybody, let's be the only bidder. We're not going to give 2 first-round picks, but maybe we'll give 1 first-round pick after we use this year's draft pick.
I mean, they spent all that money on Matt Gay. Maybe they're trying to build the Ravens, like with the elite kicker guard. No, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like they do have, it's weird, but they do kind of have some things that the Ravens have. Obviously, interior offensive line play. They're terrible at tackle. Like that's a place where, if you want Lamar, I think like the offensive line is not up to snuff. They do have tight ends. Jelani Woods, I think is a good young player there. I believe Mo Alley Cox is still under contract. Like, and obviously Jonathan Taylor is a good player. So there's something there. Michael Pittman would probably be the best wide receiver that's ever played with Lamar. But the Colts are in this position where they've gone Rivers, Wentz, Ryan, like. I think they want to build their own quarterback, right? And so, but I think at pick 4, they're very likely going to get a chance to get one. I think if they get leapfrogged to 3, let's say the Lions go up and get Richardson or something like that with Arizona's pick, they might say, look, it's if we got to pick between Levis and Lamar Jackson, let's open up the conversation about Lamar Jackson. I do believe that they are thinking about it. I just think that at pick 4, they might think that they can get the third best quarterback in the group.
Yes, I also think they may have their guy. Like Tommy just put up. He said Colts picking 4th. Do they take AR-15, Jeff, or Kentucky quarterback? Bucky Brooks just predicted they take defensive end from Texas Tech. You're down there in Lubbock. Obviously, that pro day is getting ready to go, and that's why you're down there, Jeff. Could they be looking someplace else? And if they are looking someplace else, then that does open up the idea of going after Lamar Jackson. And I get what Eric's saying about the older quarterbacks. Lamar's not an older quarterback. He's still, I think he's only like a year older than, like, was it Anthony
26
or something?
Wentz is young too. He just sucks, but yeah.
Okay. But I mean, could that be a possibility? And I'll throw in the Falcons. Like when Desmond Ridder, went as far down as he went, and Sam
That makes
Howell.
the most sense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons still, to me, make the most sense, and this may just be a slow play by them. Hey, somebody wants to go and give them 2 first-round picks, they can have them. When they get done, at the end of the day, we'll go in late and make our offer that we think is fair, and we'll try to get this guy. I still think I don't have any information, but it just seems to make a lot of sense.
But again, it's the challenge with him, and he's going to have it with every team, the Colts, the Falcons, whoever it is who wants to play that game with him. He's got to sit there and hear the message coming from the team of, you know what, we can't do this number, but we can do this. When the agent's there, the agent can hear that and go back to the client and say, you know what, they don't want to go here. This makes sense. And if you can do this, we can get this later. We can make this happen. There's nobody there buffering that message. And so all he's going to hear is, they ain't giving me my money. You're not giving me my $230 million. What the hell? Who else can I talk to about this? And you got this random uncle, cousin, whoever he is, trying to, play these games and talk to people. It's just a mess because he's in the middle of it. When you're the quarterback, you can do this when you're Richard Sherman. You can do it when you're Bobby Wagner or Laramie Tunsil because you know the marketplace. You know where you fit in. It's different at quarterback. And it's different when you have a quarterback like this who is obviously very sensitive about what he's doing and not doing a very good job of managing his business.
Well, and with Laramie Tunsil, he's the best at his position.
Yeah.
Right? There's no evidence that Lamar Jackson is the best at his position. Yeah. And he's asking for the best money, and that's a big problem in there as well. The 2D podcast brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, serving the entire KC metro area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they're not a problem anymore if you know Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Been serving Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online right now at GannAsphalt.com. or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things, everything, parking lot. That's what they do. Let's talk a little bit about Odell Beckham Jr. to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers wants him. Nobody else seems to be popping on a big deal. Is that the last box to check to get Rodgers there, Eric? Do you think this is where he ultimately lands? There were 20 teams at his pro day. This is another one that they wait for the draft to be by so that somebody can offer up, see if they get a guy who's better first, and then we'll get the teams that didn't get what they wanted out of wide receiver to now become serious bidders.
Yeah. I think that a lot of it is also, to me, I think after the first wave of free agency, if they weren't going to take a deal that was reasonable, then we're waiting until you have to wait until the other side of the aisle is desperate, and that's only going to happen after the draft. So I agree with you. I think that and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right, Petro? Because ultimately, it's less wear and tear, it's less commitment on the player side, and maybe we all look at, this is kind of a stupid. Why are they letting it get this way? And maybe for some of these players, the uncertainty is fine. They've made their money and all that. So. I agree. I think that it's going to wait until, you think about Kansas City, right? You think about if they don't come out of, we think tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle, wide receiver, with 11 picks, you might get all those positions, but you might not. And so there could be, teams much like that end up desperate for that position later on.
What do you think? Is this the ultimate landing spot? Because you're selling your soul to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, what's left to do? I mean, why not? Why not go grab him as well and make the landing spot? Or is it, hey, no, that they don't need any more. They've already got Rodgers on board. This is about getting the Packers to give.
To me, it feels New York makes sense because it's New York. I don't think it's. I mean, Aaron Rodgers helps, but Odell's a big stage player. L.A., and being in Dallas, like the possibility of being with the Cowboys, walking around with Micah Parsons at the games, and Diggs and those guys. He loves that kind of stuff. That's the only place I can see him going and taking a discount, because it's New York City, and he'd be back where he started his career, and he could go to the clubs and be the guy. And, it would be a good place for him in terms of what's around him, because you have Lazard and you have Garrett Wilson, and, Hardman will run deep routes with the guy and stuff, but he can be what he was in LA when he came to LA to be, which is basically second, third option, and, have some fun in a big city. I think that's what makes it appealing for someone like Odell, which is why I could see him winding up there.
Yeah, we'll see if it plays out in the end. John Lynch says that Brock Purdy showed enough to be the front runner at quarterback. Jeff, you take this as just trying to light a fire under Trey Lance, or is this the passing of the torch that this is their guy now moving forward?
Trey Lance to me becomes a very interesting chess piece in this process too, because if they're going Brock Purdy, I don't see, and maybe you keep Trey Lance around just in case for insurance because he's cheap and whatever, his rookie deal, but Brock Purdy played himself into a starting job, and unless he's just not healthy or that arm's an issue come the fall, I don't see where Trey Lance can get it back from him. I mean, Trey Lance was always going to be a developmental guy, and we all know he threw 300 passes in his career after high school before this whole thing happened with the Niners. And yeah, I think John Lynch is a very straightforward guy, and they know that the way that offense ran with Brock Purdy under center, the weapons they have, heck, I mean, he's cheaper than Trey Lance. I mean, that helps too. And if Brock Purdy is going to be your guy, we just lost Eric.
Yeah,
you have to give him more opportunities earlier, because you don't have that fifth-year option with him, right? And so you have to start the clock now and give him 2 full years to see if he can actually be your quarterback after that his rookie deal is up. So yeah, I think totally I think Trey Lance is going to be playing someplace else.
Yeah, and that's an interesting trade piece. I mean, what he can bring back if you're the Niners and willing to go down that road, that's a lot of I mean, and that doesn't help the Lamar Jackson case, right? Because now here's another option that's out there, and it's a young guy with a lot of upside that you're going to get a discount on.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, think about it this way: if the guys in this year's draft versus Trey Lance with a year with Kyle Shanahan learning how to play football, what's more appealing?
Right.
I think I take Lance.
Yeah, I agree, and this year's class is getting a lot of run because I think everybody's seen some quarterbacks have some success early on. And everyone's desperate for quarterbacks. So people are going to jump on them. But do you find any of the guys that are in this year's draft that you'll say that's Andrew Luck, that's Trevor Lawrence, that's, any of the guys that were coming out and thought to be, listen, Patrick Mahomes wasn't a can't miss guy. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that you have to be one of those guys, a John Elway, the undisputed 1-1 going into your draft to be, effective. But it is interesting that if Trey Lance gets put back into the mix, and like you said, with another year of seasoning, that's an interesting development there for how things could change up in this draft and, affecting this draft as well.
Yeah, no, I think the Niners, I think John Lynch is sitting there thinking, yeah, it sucked last year to go through all this with his quarterbacks, but we're coming out of this with a nice scenario to actually bolster our chances of being able to stay on top of the NFC West and compete for the NFC Championship every year for the next 5 years if we play this right. I mean, I think I'm definitely shopping Trey. If I'm John Lynch, I'm talking to people right now about, hey, what do you think about Trey Lance? What do you want to do? Atlanta Falcons, what do you think about Trey Lance? Washington Commanders, what do you think about Trey Lance? Because you can't tell me that Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, these guys who they're trying to blow up and try to act like we can win with these guys are going to move the meter. I think you go to every team out there that's looking for a quarterback and say, we know this guy's in the draft, but this guy, we've had him. We've been training him. He was a top 3 pick. The fact that he hasn't played at all except for a game and a half, he's untarnished right now.
Brock Purdy, I think, did more than Rob Johnson did before. I don't even remember. Was he performed well for the Bills and then went to the Jags, or performed well for the Jags?
The Bills. Yeah.
Okay. And they gave up a big package for him. I think he's done more than Scott Mitchell did. I'm going way back for Scott.
No.
Not done more than Scott Mitchell?
Scott Mitchell was like one of the most efficient passers in the NFL in 1995.
No, in the 3 or 4 games he got that had the Dolphins trading a lot for him. You're telling me Scott Mitchell was was worthy of the trade that the Dolphins made for him?
Well, they did. Scott Mitchell was a free agent that the Lions signed.
I thought it was a trade, wasn't it?
No, he was because the Vikings tried to sign him and they got Warren Moon in a trade instead. Like Mitchell for like a moment with the Dolphins after the Achilles injury to Marino was like really, really good.
So I got it backwards. I got it backwards which direction he's going. He was with Miami and then he went to the Lions. I couldn't remember.
And then he had one of the most efficient seasons ever in 95, was terrible in 96, was okay in 97, was garbage after that. Rob Johnson was never a good NFL quarterback, ever.
Right. But Scott Mitchell and the Lions had 1 winning season. All right. I want to be clear. So he had one of the most efficient seasons. That's great. They went 10-6. Here's the point. He went 3-4 for the Dolphins as a starter and threw for 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Has Brock Purdy, not that he's being traded, but has Brock Purdy done anything more to make you think we're giving you everything and now we're going to put Trey Lance on the trade market? Or is the Niners' best bet to stay the course with both guys?
The Niners' best bet is to stay the course with both guys because collectively they're cheap, right? And there's not, as long as you don't marry yourself to the move that you made to get him in the first place, like having those 2 guys and Sam Darnold as your quarterback room is perfectly fine. I think the difference in San Francisco is that there's and I don't mean to use the word arrogance, but I think like Kyle Shanahan has cultivated an arrogance that he can do whatever he wants with any quarterback, right? Like, and so I think with Lance, you got to call the Vikings. You got to call, these teams that don't like the Vikings don't have the picks to get Lamar, but they got the picks to get Trey Lance, right? Like you got to be calling these teams that kind of have, quarterbacks kind of at the end of the road, the Titans, right? You got to be calling like teams like that maybe are not stacked up to get one of the top guys, but Trey Lance for a number 2 pick, like that's a really reasonable thing to go. Like I would say that has to be your orientation towards Purdy and Lance, is to say Purdy's on cost control longer. He's cheaper, probably just as good. If you add it all up, Lance at least has the draft capital and a lot of, obviously draft capital carries because a lot of these GMs, if a guy is picked high, this is Brett Veach, if a guy is picked high, generally speaking, they had him high as well. And they think that a change of scenery is what can unlock him and not necessarily that their evaluation was bad.
Yeah, no, I get the dynamics that are at work there. The question is there any kind? I don't think there's pressure like John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan are going to get fired.
No,
but at some point, win a championship, right? Like the closer you get without getting there, the more your fan base starts to say, "Come on, let's go, win the big game." We've heard that before, and so there it may be that the best case is to go forward with both quarterbacks because it is still cost effective. But at the end of the day, that's a big piece to be able to go and get, another player. Right, to get a high pick or get a whole bunch of picks, maybe it's a lower first round pick, but you also get more picks. You get more ammunition to try to build the team around him. It may be too tempting for them to say we're going to walk away from this. Jeff, how about Matt LaFleur preaching patience for Jordan Love? Is this a bad sign already that he's tempering expectations? I don't think anybody thinks he's going to be Aaron Rodgers in day one, but for him to come out, is that a bad look?
I believe Aaron Rodgers helped Jordan Love with his behavior and their play at for parts of last year because it just, it tarnished him enough to where Jordan Love can come in and be a breath of fresh air. I feel like if you were to ask Packers fans or be around Green Bay, I haven't been around Green Bay since all this stuff happened last year. That's not a town that's built for that kind of stuff. They get tired of the drama in a hurry. They want to know that the players want to be there, that it's going to be drama free, that it's going to be, a lot of kumbaya. And I think Jordan Love did enough in the time he played last year to take away that stigma that was following him of like, can this guy even be anything for us now? When you're coming off a season when you didn't make the playoffs, you lost your last game. Your quarterback has been on Pat McAfee for the last couple of years, just ripping apart your management, and is now bolted to the Jets or wants to leave town to go to the Jets. I think Jordan Love is in a really good situation. So I think what Matt LaFleur is saying, yeah, he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, but let's give him a chance to be Jordan Love. And I think that, I think when Rodgers came in, there was so much pressure because of what Brett Favre had been, what he meant, how much they loved him. Aaron Rodgers is not leaving Green Bay with that same amount of love. That's going to affect the next guy coming after him.
Yeah. Eric, what do you take away from those comments? Not much. Not much.
Does anybody have a better frozen face than Eric?
Oh, no, he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. That's all right. I don't know that we needed a whole lot more from Eric anyway. I want to close with this. This is, and bear with it, all right, because the payoff is at the very, very end of the comments of Mike McDaniel. The owners' meetings are going on right now. The NFL winter meetings, whatever they're called, are going on right now. The coaches are there. Mike McDaniel was asked, having been a former employee of the Washington Commanders, about Daniel Snyder, right? A lot of stuff swirling, a lot of allegations, an investigation going on about the Commanders. Reports coming out today that a $6 billion offer, $6 billion with a B dollar offer has been made to buy the Washington Commanders. And of course, former Commanders employee, former Commanders assistant coach, now Dolphins head coach, Mike McDaniel was asked about his time with the Commanders.
When I worked there, I felt as though he was a guy that has lived his whole life to be the owner of that particular team. So it is surprising, I guess, and from my experience, just because of my 3 years there, I didn't necessarily see that coming. But in general, people have different reasons to do whatever. I'm not going to pretend to know everything that's going on there. I'm just more looking at the fact that, wow, the organization's worth that much. And, I couldn't get free coffee.
How great is Mike McDaniel? Yeah. He goes through it all, very political. He's not going to say anything sideways about his time there. And the guy loves being the owner of the Commanders and so on. And then wow, it's worth that much? I can't get free. Is that to say that
a jar, a tin right next to the coffee maker? Put a couple.
You got to put a buck in and a styrofoam cup falls down and then the coffee shoots into it. It's worth $6 billion and he's they're having to pay for coffee with the Commanders. How does that even work?
Yeah. If you ever went and saw their facility, you'd know exactly how it works because it's in an office park. It looks like it looks like an old retro 1970s government building. It's just they didn't have a dome for a long time. It's a dump. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 worst facilities left in the NFL, and this is the guy who owns it is one of the richest guys in the NFL. They are cheap.
Wow, I mean that's amazing. Gotta pay for the coffee. Let's end with this. We have some of the folks that want to chime in and help out. I'm saying, Eric, I'm on me for a new computer.
Kickstarter.
I think we have it's the internet. It's not a computer. The internet has been bad here, but yeah.
Hang on. Eric has more computer problems than a data scientist should. Here's some pity. Tina, always one of the sweet ones. Poor Eric.
Thank you, Tina.
Eric, frozen face eager. Eric impersonating Stonehenge. I think all solid. I think all solid efforts. on their part. You got anything
We
on?
were saying we never know when you're actually frozen because your face is the same way when you're actually live. We can't if someone's asking you questions, you're like,
Yeah,
I think
like,
you're contemplating, and you're not. You're just not there anymore.
I don't move around. I don't make bad faces like Petro does when I try to make a point about the Chiefs or something, where he looks at me like I'm stoned or something. So yeah, I'm sorry. Apologize. Usually I'm better than this, but yeah, it's been a privilege.
Have you rebooted your router?
I'm not rebooting my router in the middle. I'm not walking all the way downstairs to reboot my router.
Have you
I'm coming back.
rebooted?
I'm just praying that it returns, and then I'm, yelling at my wife through a text message to get the thing figured out. Like that's the kind of guy I am, apparently.
I always love when I have tech issues and I call the company or whatever, and they immediately want me to start being the tech, the technician. Well, can you see this? Can you tell me that? No, because I'm not a technical repairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times. How you doing, Eric? You all right? So we wrap things up here.
I'll make it.
You'll make it. You'll make it. All right, it's good. Remember our 2D podcast brought to you by our good friends at GAN Asphalt and Concrete, one of the fastest growing companies in Kansas City. They are hiring, so all positions are available up to $30 per hour based on experience, paid time off, and insurance, just to name a few. And if your business has any issues with the parking lot, call them today, 816-484-3338. Every kind of repair, every kind of maintenance, every kind of building of parking lots, they do it and do it better than anybody else. GAN Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, proudly sponsoring the 2D podcast. Tell them you heard about them on the 2D podcast. So for Jeff Chadiha down in Lubbock, Texas, beautiful Lubbock, Texas, where he'll attend the pro day for Texas Tech tomorrow. Can you wave, Eric? Okay, yeah, Eric Eager is still with us. He was frozen. From Sumer Sports, a man.
Did I just dance during these things?
Yeah, a man headed out to reboot his internet. My name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the 2D NFL podcast.